And it tells me it's recording. That's great. Today, we want to talk about ebooks. Now, with that, and Genevieve, and presumably David as well, have a particular interest. I'm going to cover that at the end. From Helen, I don't know to whom I'm addressing, but is your interest in the general concept of ebooks, or do you particularly want to share books with someone else?
I just have a Kindle that's full of books.
Right. Okay. Ebooks themselves are nothing terribly special. They're just a computer format, a digital file. There are several standard formats, MOBI, M-O-B-I, EPUB, and a whole plethora of names invented by Amazon, such as AZW, AZW3, KFX. These are all standardized encoding protocols to say, I have a book here with this text, and here's the format it's going to come out in. And once you've actually gone through that standardization process, the program that opens the book up can display it. And that doesn't matter whether it's running on your PC or on your Kindle or Fire tablet or wherever. MOBI was invented by a company Amazon took over way back, I think 2010 or thereabouts, a long time ago. And that was the format they used in their early forays into ebooks. They then brought out their own format, AZW, and they keep changing it, partly to add additional features, and partly, I think, to stop people copying books. AZW formats and the current one, which is called KFX, come with something called digital rights management built in, DRM, you'll hear it called. And this is nothing fancy, it's just a way of encrypting the information in the book file so that nobody else can read it apart from someone who's registered with Amazon as owning that book. You'll remember, Helen, when you set up your Kindle, you had to say, here's my Amazon account and my password. So it knows that any books on that Kindle actually have been bought by you. And it's the same with the Fire tablet or indeed Kindle on your PC. Okay, now, where do I get them? The obvious answer to that is Amazon. Amazon have a huge selection. And you may or may not be familiar, but Amazon also have a selection of free Kindle books. So you can actually get stuff for free from them. To be honest, it's not terribly exciting. And if you're registered with Amazon Spain, it gets even harder. Is anyone registered with Amazon Spain, or is it all Amazon UK? Okay. Well, as long as your Spanish is good, you'll be fine. They do have English language books as well. Personally, I registered my Fire tablets in the UK, or to a UK address, so that I could actually have everything coming from amazon.co.uk. However, there are some other sources of ebooks. Let me just go to share my screen. Always takes me a moment or two to get this going. And if I go to, I'm going to go to Amazon UK to make it easier for me. Oh, Peter has joined us. I'm just adding Peter into the link. Peter's off the page. Good morning, Peter. Can you hear us? Can't hear you, Peter. I can see you. I don't know if you can hear us. Nope, doesn't look good. Not working, Peter. Now we heard something from you. Can you hear us?
Right. Sorry.
Yep, good morning. I've just got to the stage where I've described what ebooks are, and we're now going to look at some sources. The obvious one, of course, is Amazon, where there is clearly going to be a huge selection of Kindle books, and they also have a free section. However, we're probably all familiar with that, so I want to look at one or two other things instead. There's something called the e-reading club. I think I'll always translate pages from Russian. However, I can actually up here say I want it in English anyway. And if we take an author, I don't know, Lee Child, it will come back with books they have from Lee Child. Now, this is a free resource. One slight difficulty it has is that from time to time, publishers seem to take exception to what is actually on there. And you can actually say, I want to download something from this website, and you'll get this message up, unavailable for legal reasons. Sadly, that tends to be more recent works. If you're looking for something older, usually you can actually download it. And that's the e-reading club, it's called. Now, if I move on a bit to Google Books, if I look for Lee Child, we've got all these ones. And we have Killing Floor by Lee Child. You can't actually download it, at least as far as I'm aware, you can't download it, but you can actually read it online. Another resource is the Open Library. The Open Library is part of the Internet Archive. I don't want to donate just now. If you actually register with them, you can log in, and then you can actually operate this like a library. So it's these ones, and it will tell you, is it available in the library? Well, in this case, it's not in the library, or availability might come up saying it's currently out on loan, or it could indeed be available for you to borrow. And it works just like a real library, in that if you borrow a book from here, you get it for a couple of weeks, and then you have to return it before you can actually get another one. So there's three sources of books. One thing you'll have noticed is that they are not necessarily free, which is an issue. For reading a lot of these ones, you actually have to be online with your computer or your tablet or whatever. Mobile phone actually is perfectly acceptable for reading. Excuse me. If I just come back and talk to you for a moment. Catch Roswitha having a gulp of her coffee, yep. These are all very good if you are quite happy to read something online from your device. Obviously, Amazon is great if you want to download stuff, but it's not so good if you don't like to pay for the stuff. There are other sources of books around. Your friend, the guy down the golf club, pardon me, or down the pub if that's your frequent, will have a disc, and there are numerous versions of these going around, lots of free discs. Sorry, Genevieve, I didn't realize you joined us there. You can read them in several ways. I want to switch back now to the most obvious way of reading them. In Amazon, make a program called Kindle for PC, which is also available for other devices as well. And what this has done is I have registered with them. If I go to the options for a moment, as me, so this is my Amazon account. And this is all the books I have purchased from Amazon over the years, 142. If I want to read one, I can click on it, right click and say download, and it will actually bring it down to this device after having checked that I am registered with Amazon, etc., etc. And I now get a tick, and I could start reading that book here. this is the book. I'm not terribly keen on how they actually mark it up, but there you go. And you can read it online. If I go back to the library, you'll see I have 142 books in total. I've downloaded one. I can also add PDFs in here. Now, these books have come down from Amazon's cloud onto this device, and they're encrypted with DRM that I talked about earlier. So if I go to the tools options again, you'll see that my content is currently stored in a folder called My Kindle Content. And if I actually display that folder,
You need your glasses.
now, there we go. There's, if I just split the screen like that, need to come back down to Dale Brown. Oh, actually, I'll do it that way. If I go to My Kindle Content, you'll see that nowhere is Dale Brown Moscow Offensive mentioned. Instead, I have this gobbledygook, which in turn has all of this stuff in it. So the bad news is, folks, that once you use Amazon Kindle for PC and you download a book that you have purchased, it's not terribly simple to work out where the book is and what it's called and actually share it with someone. This is actually the content of the book itself. This is control information about it, and so on and so forth. The MD file contains a lot of important stuff because although you actually think of a book as being one item, in the current Kindle world from Amazon, it's actually multiple streams of data held in the one file. So one of these, for example, will contain the cover page for the book. This bit here, this bit. So you can see there's a problem here in that even although you actually get this stuff down onto your own laptop, in this case, so it's in here, in my Kindle content, in my documents, I can't actually do terribly much with it because the format is largely incomprehensible. Okay, so this information is still DRM protected. However, minimize that just now. There is just one other thing I want to point out about Kindle for PC. In the options field, under General, automatically install updates when they're available without asking me. This becomes important later. This is version 1.26 of Kindle for PC, and this is the one I'm using, and it's what I'll be demonstrating on later. More modern versions, and there are up to version 130 now, won't necessarily work. In fact, I can tell you definitely that 130 and 128 don't work because I've used them. So these first three tabs here, you want to have automatically install updates when they're available, unticked, registration, you put in your details, and content goes by default into My Kindle Content. You can actually change that to wherever you like and give it a better name. So I'm going to close down Kindle for PC for the moment, and I'm going to close that down. That Kindle for PC is actually a very nicely featured program, and it does allow you to actually see your books, download them, read them, and quite impressive really, you get nothing from Amazon. Even better, if you have a book in a format that you've got from somewhere else, a .mobi file or a .epub or what have you, you can actually add it to your Kindle library, that My Kindle Content that was described in that version. You can put it in there, and Kindle for PC will pick it up and display it along with all the stuff you've bought. So it gives you one place to actually manage all of your books from if you wish. However, that would be too easy, so we're going to do something slightly different. I use a program called Calibre, which is a free program written by a guy called COVID Goyal. I would imagine his mum and dad are sorry they call him COVID now, but we'll see. And I've put some books in here into this Calibre interface. The Calibre interface is quite noisy, I think. You can actually go to any of the column headings, change them, make them bigger. You can add columns, you can take them away. Across here, if it's a reasonably new book, you will get the cover of the book and some information about it. Most importantly, it will tell you what format the book is on your system. For myself, I also never use this tag browser, as they call it down here. And there's a section down here called Layout, where I can say, hide the tag browser. I can also do nice things like show a carousel where you can look through your books. I don't use that either. You can have a cover grid where you can look at your books. Now, isn't that a little bit reminiscent of the Amazon layout? You'll see that some of these, which have come in from sources I'm not going to go into, don't actually have things like covers. However, if you go to the format section and double click on the format, it comes up with the option to add in a crap one. Not going to do that for this one. Let me go for a more modern book. Up here, if I right click on it, I can edit the metadata for this book. Now, metadata is data about the data contained in the file itself. So you see the file for this book actually contains things like what it's called, who the author was, how we can sort it if we're doing a listing, if it's been rated, any tags that describe it, if it's got an ISBN number, when it was published, etc., etc. And you can actually change these if you want, or you can actually ask the system to go off and find more up-to-date metadata about it. I'm not going to do that just now. It also gets very interesting because across here with Calibre, you can actually edit the content of the book. You'll see this editorial review has got a couple of tags, they're called, highlight, and that actually controls the formatting in here, just like a web page. This is called a markup language. That is very powerful. Finally, it's telling me the book is held as an AZW3 file and it's 0.62 megabytes in size. Okay, so this is Calibre. We'll go back to a more standard layout. I also use something called the doc quick view. This will give me all the books by the same author that I have highlighted up on this section that are held in my Calibre library. And I'm going to undock it. And you can slide it down where you want, and you can dock it. So it's tucked out of the way. You can change the amount of space that's apportioned to the two sections. If I take another book, it'll tell me all the books by Aristotle. Very useful facility. Now, if everything goes okay, I can click on the format. It will tell me it's preparing the book. Welcome to the Calibre viewer. And I can actually now start reading the book. I find, unfortunately, that for me, I have to, where I can find it. I'm always in the wrong place. I find the interface is a bit difficult to follow, especially with a mouse. However, you can actually work your way through the book and read it if you wish. It's handled by a program called eBook Viewer. Remember this for later on. So that's a quick run through Calibre and its facilities. Now you will notice that down here it says update found version 5.60. Down here it tells me I'm currently running 4.23. When Calibre moved from version 4 point to version 5 point, it changed the programming language it used. About 8 years ago, Python was updated from version 2 to version 3, and version 5, oh sorry, throwing all these numbers at you, of Calibre is written in Python 3, which is incompatible with Python 2. So I'm using Calibre 4.23 because in Calibre you can change its functionality, change Calibre behavior by adding plugins to do different things. And these plugins have to be written in the same language as Calibre itself. If I were to update to Calibre version 5.6, I'd have to update all my plugins to also be written in Python 3, and some of them aren't available yet. So discard that. I think that's all I wanted to say on Calibre for the moment. I've lost my other screen, which was giving me all my prompts. Any questions so far? Oh, that's sad.
I've got one.
Fire away.
We've got an iPad, a Kindle, and obviously the laptops, and they've all got books on each device. Is it possible to transfer books between these devices? I know
Yes.
Kindle you can do to the, but can you do the iPad, the Apple books?
Right. These are all from your Amazon account.
The ones on the iPad are from Apple books.
Right. No, you can't, because Apple books will have their own DRM and they'll be encoded to stop you transferring them around. And I'm afraid I don't know enough about Apple to say, yes, you can do that. You'd have to speak with Susan about that, I guess.
Okay.
If you
Can you transfer from the books you've downloaded on your PC to the Kindle?
Yes. Once again, did you buy those from Amazon with your Amazon account?
No.
It's okay, it's not a court of law.
It depends who sees this video. No, I didn't.
Right, okay, right. Well, we'll come back to that later. Could you just hold that question just now, David? Roswitha, you want to ask something?
I only wanted to ask, because I know nothing about Calibre, can you only read those books on your laptop? Because the idea of a Kindle is that you can take it anywhere with you.
Yep. No. That's a good prompt, because I forgot to bring my Kindle with me this morning. So I'm just going to talk about it. My time is charging on as always anyway. If I go back to the Kindle screen, the Calibre screen, I beg your pardon. If you take your Kindle and you plug it into a USB cable so it's attached to your computer, you get additional icons along the top here for managing the Kindle. Also, on the extreme left-hand side here, you will get a note saying that, let's take Justice as a Woman, Catherine Cookson. If it's on your Kindle, it'll come up and tell you it's in the main memory of your Kindle and it's stored there. Calibre is extremely good at taking books from any source and putting them onto a Kindle. Now, I was worried this was going to happen. We've almost run out of time and I haven't actually got to the crux of what I wanted to talk about today. So let me just very quickly say, if you have books that you have somehow acquired from somewhere, they could be old books before DRM, for example, then you can freely transfer these around. The problem arises if your books have DRM, which both Amazon and Apple will enforce, in which case it becomes much more difficult. Now, at this stage, I think that's enough for today. I'm going to